The Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is sponsored by Accunet Mortgage, an equal housing lender, NMLS ID 255368, and Accunet Realty Advisors, which is a separate company from but still affiliated with Accunet Mortgage.
Putting a roof over your head without the headache. Get answers to all of your home buying questions. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And a big happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Good morning and welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. I'm Steve Kettler along with Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors owner Brian Wickert and licensed millennial loan consultant David Wickert. As always, if you have a question, you can call us or text the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line. That number is 414-799-1620. So last weekend we didn't get a chance to really squeeze in the conversation about tax reform and what that might mean for mortgages and buyers and sellers and appreciation and all of that stuff.
Well, and that's probably a good thing because there were a couple more articles that came out this week about it. Now, this is the president's, the administration's tax reform proposal, and it's a simplification, even though the mortgage interest deduction is preserved on that. By the way, the National Association of Home Builders and the National Association of Realtors both are against it, way against it, because they think it's going to hurt home ownership. David pointed out to me this morning a recent article in the New York Times.
Yeah, there was an article in the New York Times Magazine, how home ownership became the engine of American inequality.
Yeah.
Inequality.
Yeah. So they're blaming, home ownership and the mortgage interest deduction. And it is, David and I work in a subsidized industry.
Correct.
And then I liked this line that meaning I didn't really like it. But this was a well-written sentence from that author. A 15-story public housing tower and a mortgaged suburban home are both government subsidized, but only one looks and feels that way. It's only by recognizing this fact that we can begin to understand why there's so much poverty in the United States today. So this writer's hypothesis is that the way the game is set up in terms of the government's tax breaks that it gives to homeowners is causing poverty. I want to say I disagree. I think if we get rid of the mortgage interest deduction and all that stuff, it's not going to solve the poverty problem. But let's look at the nuts and bolts now of the president's tax proposal. We're talking about, first thing just to remind everybody, this is about whether you itemize your deductions, and that all we're talking about here are things that you pay over the course of the year that you can then subtract from your income before you calculate how much tax you owe. And the big four things that people get to deduct are state income taxes. Hey, so whatever you pay to the state of Wisconsin, you get to knock that off your income before you calculate your tax bill to Uncle Sam. Property taxes if you're a homeowner. Mortgage interest up to $1 million. Mortgage insurance if you earn less than $108,000 a year, and charitable deductions.
Sure.
So of that list of four things, the president's proposal says we're going to eliminate the deduction for state income taxes. We're going to eliminate property taxes from things you can deduct, but we're going to preserve just two things, mortgage interest and charitable deductions. Okay. So what you do, David, Steve, everybody listening to this show, whether it's your tax preparer, yourself, maybe some tax preparation software, what we do every year when we prepare our taxes is we compare what's bigger. The four things I just mentioned that I might have paid,
Sure.
Is that total dollar amount bigger? Or is the government's standardized deduction a better deal for me?
Sure.
The standardized deduction in 2017, so this is whether you're a homeowner or renter, you can reduce your income by $6,350 if you're single, or $12,700 if you're married filing jointly. Okay? And under the new proposal, by the way, those are just about doubled. Single filers would be able to automatically reduce their
Nothing more
income.
complicated than picking standard.
12,700.
Move on.
12,700, and if you're a couple, 25,400 would be the new standard deduction. Okay. Now, let's go back to the current set of affairs and this whole idea of it's an unfair subsidy. Just how big is this subsidy? And so we just closed on a single home buyer, first-time home buyer. The guy makes $52,000 as an engineer. I looked at his taxes. He paid $2,600 of state income taxes last year. As a homeowner now, he is going to pay $3,800 in property taxes and about $7,900 in interest and mortgage insurance.
Okay.
So in the old world, when he was a renter and taking the standardized, he got the $6,300, and plus he got $4,000 for the standard deduction that you get for every person, every dependent. Bottom line is, his taxable income is going to drop by about $5,600. In his tax bracket, that means he's going to pay as a homeowner $1,400 less to the federal government in his first full year of homeownership than he did as a renter. David, do you think he knows that?
Nope.
Why?
Because people aren't calling up to get a rock-solid pre-approval, and the number one thing that they don't say is, because I want to deduct the mortgage interest from this new house I want to buy.
Correct.
It's just not on anyone's radar.
That's right. So the whole point of this New York Times article is that people are so rational in their economic decisions that they actually know how much the financial benefit is of home ownership.
At the end of this article, they ask the person who's struggling to get by, do you know what the mortgage interest deduction is? And her answer is no.
Correct.
So it's not the thing that's preventing
That's driving
upward
the bus.
mobility.
All right, so the big question is if this plan gets passed, is it going to impact home prices? We'll cover that when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ. And if you have a question, you can call us or text us on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line. That number is 414-799-1620.
Getting you through the home buying process. Welcome back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
So, are toll roads the likeliest way the state is going to go about paying for future road projects? And are major undertakings like the zoo interchange in danger of being halted or canceled altogether without a solution soon? John McCure gets the answer to these questions and more. He'll go one-on-one with Assembly Speaker Robin Voss at 3:20 tomorrow during Wisconsin's Afternoon News. You're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show here on WTMJ. Brian Wickert, David Wickert with us. So if this tax proposal idea goes forward, how does this affect, home appreciation or home price values in the future?
Well, the National Association of Realtors and the builders, and David, didn't you cite some quotation this morning about some old study said it would?
A 1996 study said if you took away the mortgage interest deduction, it would impact home prices, home values by 13 to 17%.
Okay. I say bah humbug. No way. So, again, home ownership is not about people, saying, you know what, I need to pay less income tax.
Correct.
I am going to, therefore, buy and finance a house. No way. The number one, and David's a millennial, what is the number one reason? And by millennials, by the way, are, quote, crawling out of the basement, out of their parents' basements, according to a Wall Street article this week, which I think that's derogatory.
Yes, it is.
I don't like that.
Okay.
To buy houses, and we're seeing it too. A lot of millennials are saying, you know what, I want to buy a house. Why, David?
They want to stop paying rent, but it's the forced savings plan of a mortgage that they're interested in getting into a home sooner rather than later.
But they don't articulate that. They don't say, hey, David, I want to buy my first house because I need a forced savings plan.
Correct.
They say, I want to stop throwing money
away
out the window.
Rent, paying my landlord's mortgage.
That's right, on
Correct.
rent. That's why.
Correct.
People buy homes, and then to live there and raise their families and have, something that's their own and all that kind of stuff. A couple other little quick factoids, though, about the tax plan. Remember, under the current president's proposal, if you're a married couple filing jointly, now it's like, hey, go ahead and figure out how much you paid in mortgage interest and charitable contributions, and then compare that to the new proposed standard deduction of $25,400 that a renter could take, renters that are married couples could take. And the single people can double $12,700. Okay. You would have to carry a mortgage balance of $700,000 at a rate of 3.99 on a 30-year amortization in order to rack up $25,400 of interest.
No, thank you.
Right. So all we're doing, So it's like
That's a big house.
Very few people, and I can tell you, look at a lot of tax returns. People are not very charitable in this country. They do not pay, or at least they're not putting it on their tax return. And I'm sure if they were making charitable contributions, they would write it down. So this is just going to way simplify, which is the whole idea, the tax code. Because now everybody's just going to go, geez, I only paid $8,000 of interest last year, and I'm going with the $25,400 standard deduction. Wow. Okay. Other little nuggets, though, that I thought was interesting. This was according to a Wall Street Journal article I read this week. 2/3 of taxpayers already just take the standard deduction. So 67 out of 100 taxpayers don't itemize.
Sure.
But 75% of the mortgage interest deduction does currently go to the top 20% of income earners. Why? Because they have bigger mortgages.
Correct.
Is my theory. Okay. Enough on that topic. Sorry if I got a little wonky in the weeds there. When we come back, I've got a story about a friend of Accunet, a friend of mine who's relocating from the West Coast back to Wisconsin, and this has to do with our old friend, the piggyback mortgage, which was hugely popular back in the housing boom. It's coming back as an alternative now. Should he use a piggyback when buying his new house in Wisconsin? We'll cover that when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. If you have a question for Brian or David, you can reach us on the Accunet Mortgage talk and text line. That number is 414-799-1620.
Getting you into the home of your dreams. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
WTMJ's Classic Free Ride is officially out of the garage. It's making its first appearance of the year. You can register to win this beautiful 1968 Millennial Oldsmobile 442 convertible tomorrow from 3 until 6 at the Woodmans on Hull Avenue in Oak Creek. John McCure will be registering you and giving you a chance to win tickets to see the Zach Brown Band at Summerfest. It's WTMJ's Classic Free Ride, sponsored by Numel Medical in Tosa and Summerfest. Before we talk about piggyback loans, let's pull John in with a question in St. Francis for Brian and David. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. I've got a kind of a crazy question. My house has been in foreclosure for about a year and a half. I finally reached an agreement or got an offer from my mortgage company to bring it out of foreclosure, which the offer to me is a little bit crazy. It's about $150 more a month that my previous mortgage payment was to bring it out of foreclosure. But I guess my question is, once I get it out of foreclosure, make their payments, how long of a period will it be before I can reestablish my credit and refinance the home loan?
Okay, thanks for the call. That's a good question, and I'm glad you're able to get your home out of foreclosure. My guess is that the reason your payment is higher is that they took some of the delinquent interest and put that on top of your old principal balance and said, okay, now your principal balance is higher than it was before. So that's why I think the payment's probably higher. The answer to when could you refinance is going to be, well, you didn't actually go through the foreclosure. So the foreclosure never happened. You just have a really seriously delinquent mortgage reporting on your credit report. So
if title does, I was just going to say, if title does not show pending foreclosure,
they'll satisfy that.
Correct.
So it's going to depend when your credit score recovers. At first, I was going to give the answer of 2 years, but that's not necessarily true. Do you know what your current credit score is, John?
About 540, 580.
Okay. So as you start making payments on that loan again, your credit score will slowly improve. I'd recommend you sign up for a credit score monitoring service. Credit Karma is very popular because it's free.
I use that.
You use it.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the most accurate, but it'll at least show you keep track of it as you go up. And then when you get up and you see that going up to about 620, you'd be eligible for an FHA loan. Okay. Mm-hmm. What's your interest rate on this loan right now, John?
5%.
5. Okay. So, an FHA loan right now is like a 3.5, but you get to pay FHA mortgage insurance, which is equal to a little less than 1%. So you're really kind of like in the 4.5% range effectively on an FHA loan right now. So you're not too far off. You're not getting killed on the interest rate. So that's my recommendation. You're eligible as soon as your credit score gets back up around 600. Thanks a lot for calling into the show. Anything else you want to add, David?
I was just going to add, part of the calculation on as his credit score continues to rise is simply getting further and further removed from the foreclosure time period.
Right,
so
from the last time the mortgage lender reported him delinquent.
Right, and it's to say that time heals both wounds and credit scores.
That's right. I think it's going to take, my prediction is about 2 years.
Really?
But, yep, I think it's going to be a while.
Okay.
Yep. Because it's, within the last year, delinquent mortgage payments in the last year are pretty heavy impact on the credit score. Okay, let's just set this, the piggyback situation up. Back in 2006 and 2007, we did a ton at Accunet Mortgage of piggyback loans because you could get a 30-year fixed-rate second mortgage. So there was no interest rate risk, right, to the borrower. And when you did that math of, hey, let's give you 80% of the purchase price of the house on the first mortgage and 15% on a second mortgage, both rates are fixed. Second mortgage rate was always higher. But that always came out cheaper than paying monthly PMI. And so we did a ton of those. Currently, the time when we do most piggybacks at Accunet is on WIDA loans, if you think about it, because that's a 30-year fixed rate for 95 or 97% of the purchase price, and then 3% on the second mortgage. The rate's the same. Second mortgage is a 10-year amortization instead of 30. But now there are certain situations, including when you cross over that line into jumbo financing, which is what we're going to talk about next. We're going to compare a piggyback in lieu of 10% down on a jumbo loan when we come back after the news.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ. It's now 10:30 as we welcome in from the WTMJ 24-hour newsroom, Colleen Bolin.
Thank you, Steve. Governor Walker's.
Don't break the bank to get into a house. Back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And as always, if you have a question, you can call us or text it in on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line at 414-799-1620. Brian Wickert, David Wickert with us this morning. And now we're into a comparison situation here where you're just talking about the piggyback loan situation, but that can be compared to a whole nother scenario.
Yeah, a jumbo. So let's talk about, this friend of mine is moving back from the West Coast to Wisconsin.
This is particular to jumbo loans
but it doesn't have to be.
Right?
No, I mean, you could use this as a PMI avoidance tool as well.
I'm sorry, as you were saying.
All right, as I was saying. So the purchase price of the home, let's say we're using an example of about $525,000. So the choices are, do we lend him the maximum that we can lend on a good old-fashioned Fannie Mae 30-year fixed-rate loan, which happens to currently be $424,100.
That extra $100.
That $100.
Is key.
I don't know how they do that, but it's very important. That last $100. So we combine that 30-year fixed-rate loan with a second mortgage for $52,500.
Okay.
So that means you'd be making a 10% down payment.
Sure.
By the way, the second mortgage is on an adjustable rate loan, but the rate is fixed at a fairly low rate, 4.79% for the first 5 years. Okay, so not bad. Yeah. And it's on a 20-year amortization, so you're paying that off pretty quick. So not a lot of danger in that.
Sure.
Okay, small amount that's going to be variable starting in year 6. So that's door number 1. Door number 2 is put 10% down, but now we have to switch over to a jumbo adjustable rate mortgage. The rate's fixed for 10 years. Okay, 10 years. And on that, we can do our favorite thing, which is no monthly PMI.
Okay.
So now from a payment standpoint, and you can see this on the comparison that I sent over to you, Steve, and which, by the way, when we do these comparisons for people now, our new cool technology is that you can look at our computer screen and talk with your loan consultant at the same time as we're going over all these options and fine-tuning them.
Yes.
Hugely popular, and I don't know of anybody else that's doing that. It's just a cool technology. And so going with the piggyback, the payment's actually a little bit higher, $3,300 a month, including taxes and insurance. And if we go with the jumbo arm, it's only $60 less a month, $3,250. Okay. So there's two components to this. One component is which one does our borrower prefer, okay? And then the second thing, though, is which one would the seller prefer, okay? And now I got to add one other thing. This is this couple's dream home. They're not going to move again. They're moving back home. They are not going to move. So this is their forever house. All right, so Steve, let's pretend you were the folks. Which would you do?
Well, based on if I could see this here, because I don't have this pulled up in front of me. My email is not cooperating this morning.
And we're not on that cool technology because, anyway. So which would you prefer? The one with two loans where you have the certainty of the 30-year fixed rate, a lot of certainty on the vast majority, and either answer is fine. There's no wrong or right answer. Or would you go with the ARM where you've got it all locked up, a little lower payment, but you know you're going to have a rate adjustment in year 11 if you don't refi?
I'm planning on staying in it for the rest of my life. I'm going with the 30 year.
The rest of your natural life. Yeah, go with
I'm going with the 30 year.
That's what this customer wants to do too, and I think that's the right choice. You lock up the big chunk of money for the whole 3 decades. You never have to worry about that again.
Then there's not this big looming thing 11 years down the road.
Correct.
Yeah, a large chunk of money too.
Okay, now though, put on your seller hat, David.
Yeah.
You're the seller. And in the Wisconsin offer to purchase contract, it has these words right after the main section where you tell them what kind of financing you're going to get. It says, if the buyer is using multiple loan sources or obtaining blah, 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 describe that extra loan features on lines blah, blah, blah. So in other words, if you go with the piggyback, now your offer is contingent upon approval of a first mortgage and the second mortgage.
It would, if I was selling, it would make me nervous because I want you to show me that you're getting your mortgage from one place and not 2 places, because 2 might be twice as much paperwork, twice as much underwriting, twice as much things that could go sideways or upside down. As I said to you before we started, it's, the drastic way of saying this would be if you wrote an offer and it said, I'm going to get a mortgage from 3 places.
Right.
That would make a seller
really nervous.
Very nervous.
Yep.
And so to be able to show a seller you're getting it from one, I don't think it'll impede our buyers in this case.
Correct. So that's exactly what we're doing, David. As I was putting this together this morning, my recommendation and the buyers accepting this course of action is write the offer using the 10-1 jumbo ARM, one loan. Why? Going to look more attractive to the seller. There is nothing in the world that then prevents him from actually going with our piggyback plan.
Correct.
Nothing at all. But if for some reason he was denied on that second mortgage, which we know he's not going to be, he couldn't say, I want to cancel the contract because I didn't get my second mortgage approved. Correct. He loses that ability by going with just the one loan financing contingency. But he's willing. It's a very small risk, and he's willing to take that. All right. Speaking of risk, we're going to talk about an appraisal situation that was, problematic this last week. We will give you the details on that when we come back.
Here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. And if you have a question, you can phone it or text it in on the Accunet Mortgage talk and text line. That number is 414-799-1620.
Important home buying questions and answers you can count on. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Milwaukee's In Tandem Theater Company will soon be marking its 20th anniversary. Founders Jane and Chris Fleer reflect on the successful history of the business and look ahead to the next 20 years. Don't miss it. This week's edition of WTMJ Conversations coming up at 11:07 this morning. Brian Wickert is with us. David Wickert is with us. And now we move into an interesting appraisal situation.
Steve, I'm just going to piggyback on the In Tandem. Shout out to my friends Steph, Sean, and Ryan on their last show today for Carnival for In Tandem Theater. 2 o'clock if anyone wants to go. So, all right.
What a tie-in.
Come on.
Wow.
It's a small world.
We're well-rounded. We're just not about the numbers. We're into the arts, too. All right, cool. All right, so my story is about a large purchase.
The white-hot topic of appraisals.
Okay. What are you talking?
Keep going.
You're giving me this is
fine.
This is appraisals are important.
Let me put my pocket protector in and we'll keep going.
Okay. All right. So these numbers have been modified to protect the innocent. Okay. So let's say it's an accepted offer at $1.2 million, And subsequently, and so our appraiser goes out and says, I think this property is worth $1.2 million. He agrees with the accepted
Because
purchase
never
price.
forget, on a purchase transaction, the appraiser gets a copy of the contract.
That is
and
correct.
knows what you're willing to pay for the house.
That is correct.
Okay.
But if you've ever seen an appraisal, there's this grid on it where it lists all the attributes of the subject property. You know, is it a two-story? What's the architectural style? What's the view? Oh, how many bedrooms and bathrooms does it have? How many square feet? And we've talked about this before on the show, Steve. How many square feet are above the main entrance to the house? And how many square feet are below, like in the basement? And how many square feet are finished in the basement? And that's the detail that caused a lot of anxiety, heartburn for our client, the buyer, because even though we had an appraisal that said it was worth what it was worth, oh, by the way, they negotiated the price down to $1.175. So they negotiated the price down by $25,000 as a result of the inspection. Okay. Remember, we all say there's 3 negotiations, the original one up front, then the house inspection, and then if the appraisal comes in low, the negotiation over the lower value on the appraisal. Sure. And that's because most people, like these folks did, checked the box on the offer to purchase that says this offer is contingent upon the buyer or buyer's lender having the property appraised at the buyer's expense by a Wisconsin licensed and certified appraiser who issues an appraisal report dated subsequent to the date of this offer, indicating an appraised value for the property equal to or greater than the agreed upon purchase price. In other words, if it doesn't appraise out, I can cancel the deal. Yes. All right. So again, to recap, we got an accepted offer price now that's a little lower, $1.175 million. We've got an appraisal that says $1.2 million. But then, we're like, good. In fact, the loan is approved, the appraisal is approved, but the buyer points out, hey, the finished square footage in the basement isn't 1,900 square feet. It's really more like 1,400. The appraiser made a mistake.
He overshot by 500.
He miscalculated the finished square feet in the basement. Now, you can tell by looking at the adjustments that he made between our subject property and other homes that he was using $50 a square foot for value comparing our subject to the other properties. So, the deal is, I say to the buyer, I can do this math. He's making adjustments at $500 a square foot. 50 a square foot. Thank you, David. And so if he's off by 500 square feet, the most he's going to reduce the price is $25,000, which just happens to be what you're paying for the house, $1.175 million. So do you want me to jump through the hoops to get this guy to fix it, or are we good enough? Because, by the way, they're borrowing less than half the purchase price. Oh. Well, this particular buyer was very particular. Some people are more black and white. It's like, no, I'm paying for this appraisal, and he needs to do a good job. So we go back, and we ask him to fix the square footage. He comes back and only lowers it by 100 square feet and doesn't change the value at all. The real reason why why our customer was very upset was the appraisal contingency, the last day on which she could throw the flag, was this past Friday. Mm-hmm. And, she wanted to have that appraisal in her hand showing the correct square footage just in case the appraiser would lower the value to under what they're paying for it. The fact of the matter is, and I'm going to maybe have to put this into disclosure, and I explained this to her and she didn't like it, the appraisal's really not for the buyer. The appraisal's for the lender. And I'm looking at the appraisal report right now because I thought, I knew I've read this language, and sure it is right there in black and white. It says, the intended user of this report is the lender. So if it's good enough for me, the rest of it is just kind of customer service, but really not important. So I think I'm going to have to put that out there on some disclosure that we have buyers sign, David, to say, hey, who gets to determine if the appraisal's good enough? Us, the lender, not you. So it was very upsetting, and it was too bad. Much to do about nothing. All right, what do you want? Yeah. Oh, you know what we're going to do when we come back? What? We're going to talk a little bit about where rates finish the week, and that other thing that I have in mind when we come back.
Right here on the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Home buying advice from the guys who know it best. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And thoughts on appraisals. One more thing, Brian?
Yep. As we were talking about those appraisals, I guess maybe a logical person listening would say, well, Brian, why don't you just pick up the phone and call the appraiser and ask him what he's going to do? And the answer is because lenders aren't allowed to call appraisers.
We're not allowed to be friends with appraisers anymore.
Correct. We cannot pick up the phone and talk to them about any particular appraisal report that they're working on. So that's why I couldn't do that. That's what the borrowers wanted me to do, but I couldn't. So that's why it got a little tortured. Okay. Hey, it's Mother's Day. My mother might be listening. Mom, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Grandmother's Day.
Happy Grandmother's Day.
And a happy Mother's Day to my mom as well.
That's right. Okay, so looking at rates, David, where did we end the week?
So on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage with 25% equity and all the other right stuff, and let's not forget that includes things like no second mortgage and escrowing for taxes. Accunet could offer a rate of 3.99% with just $900 in closing costs.
No junk fees, Dave?
No paper shuffling fees.
Okay.
APR is 4.02. And then I wanted to just point out, per our caller into the show earlier, on a 15-year fixed, we could offer 3.25%, APR is 3.28, and that's with regular closing costs of $1,100. And the nice thing about a 15-year fixed is that your credit score is not included in the pricing when you've got 25% equity. So whether you've got a credit score of 740 or a credit score minimum for Accunet 620, we can offer the same rate because the lending world says, hey, I'm going to get my money back,
so fast.
Twice as fast. That credit score is not going to be the thing that gets in the way.
I'm going to say that a different way. So whether your credit score is 620, 640, 680, 740, or 800, when it comes to a 15-year fix, the rate and closing costs don't change.
Are the same.
Yeah.
And then I was just going to comment, if we're talking middle of the pack, if you've got a credit score of 680 on a 30-year fixed, Accunet could offer 4.25% on a 30-year fix. The APR is 4.3. All this talk of mortgage interest deduction, that ain't maybe the worst thing in the world.
Oh, yeah. I want a 9% mortgage so I can have more interest.
Or a $700,000 loan so I can get to the standard deduction, apparently.
Yeah, I've got a 60-second commercial running this week, David, that is based on the idea of lowering your rate just 0.5%. and shortening your remaining number of years on your loan by 2 years. So the example that I use in the commercial is going from 4.5 with 27 years remaining on your loan and taking that down to 3.99 rate and shortening the loan to 25 years on the new loan. You would save $27,700 of interest over the remaining life of the loan, a little more than on average $1,000 a year. And your payment wouldn't go up. So
pretty good.
Let's hit that old rule of thumb with a big sledgehammer, and don't think that your rate has to go down a full % to make a refi worthwhile. There's still plenty of people out there at 4.5% and 5%. What if we could get you down to a 15-year fix?
Yeah.
And then the rate really drops down to like 3.25%. There is a lot of money to be saved by people refinancing right now. Also getting rid of PMI.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing that I was just looking at, the futures market for the Fed raising rates in June, 78.5%.
A virtual certainty, and that's going to affect the prime rate, which affects everybody's home equity line of credit.
Well, and to your point earlier on the friend doing the piggyback, doing the 10-year ARM, I know it's 11 years down the road, but when the year 11 arrives, his rate's probably not going to be as low as when he bought the house here in 2017.
The object of the game, if you take out an ARM, is to refinance sometime during that fixed rate period.
Yeah.
And I've done that a zillion times myself, David.
Okay.
But I finally caved in and got a 30-year fixed rate.
So that you never have to worry about it again.
Well, exactly.
Good job by you.
Thank you. When we had the dip last year, I actually voluntarily went from like 2.97 on an ARM up to 3.5 on a fixed.
Okay.
Because I just thought, hey, that 0.5% is deductible, at least for now. But I went for the rate safety. There's really nothing big coming up on the economic calendar next week. So this is a great week to...
And thankfully the French, elected...
Election came in fine,
Yeah.
We talked about that last week, David, while you were in Kentucky.
It was muddy.
Right. Oh, muddy track. Okay.
A little bit.
So we are good. That's why I decided to emphasize refinancing. Obviously, we're in the peak of home buying season, although the listings continue to be short. You said that you read the article about
15%
listings.
less than last month.
15 fewer. Is that the number of homes to shop from?
Listings.
Okay. The actual number of homes for sale.
Yeah.
So you got to get sharp with your rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval to buy. All right, that's all the time we have for on this Mother's Day. Don't forget to click on the blue button at Accunet.com to get started with your no Social Security required, no Social Security number required refi, or a rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval to buy. We'll see you here next week, Steve.
Very good. Colleen Boland joins us next from the WTMJ 24-hour newsroom.
The preceding was a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the Accunet Mortgage and Realty show are solely that of the hosts or guests of Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors, and not WTMJ Radio or Scripps Media Incorporated.